Greetings, fellow patriots. Tiki here.
And BlueDragonFive.
And we're here to commemorate 75 years of Captain America, Marvel's iconic standout for all things American, all things patriotic, all things, just Dragon can explain it much better than I can. But regardless, Dragon, this is a special Veterans Day podcast commemorating Captain America. And now, you, sir, please do a proper introduction to this guy.
Basically, let me just echo what my counterpart just said, but let me make it all sound all kind of mystical and nice. So, folks, we're here to celebrate Veterans Day right. We're going to pay tribute to one of the most famous veterans who this year has reached 75 years. This soldier is Steve Rogers, or better known by everyone as Captain America.
The Star-Spangled Man with the plan.
Lincoln! Okay. So, boy, it's no secret that we're fans of the old Cap, man. We love Captain America.
I mean, I would say you're definitely more of a fan of the character in general than I am, because, I like him. I appreciate him. I like the movies, Civil War, I think, is my favorite Cap film out of the bunch. I do like Dragon, it's the Winter Soldier thing, where I actually have rewatched it a couple times. I did a little overrated. So regardless, that's where our split comes in. I just kind of want to make that clear. But yes, Dragon, I am a fan of the character. I just want to, just give proper emphasis to you on like the historian of Captain America, the expert on Captain America here. I am but a simple novice to the character that merely appreciates him. So
And just basically what we're kind of doing here, too, I just want to summarize. We don't want to just kind of trade old ground, but just real quick, what we always I've always said with Captain America is that I think we all kind of liked Captain America. Before the Marvel films came out, we all kind of liked him in kind of the, what I like to call, I'm going to bring up a few points there, and it's kind of the Uncle Sam equivalent of Captain America. That, you like Captain America like apple pie, like America, that sort of thing. Like, you like him in the grand sense of, like, okay, as an idea, like, how can you not like Captain America? It's that sort of thing. I liked him more like as a player on a team. Okay, he's the guy with the cool shield on the Avengers. He yells the battle cry. I used to like Cap, and also like as someone to pair with other characters. Not really investing with him solo until the Marvel films came along, and the MCU Cap. I ate it up. I was so enamored, and I became so. I just became so like emotionally involved with like Cap. Like, yes, I mean this character's journey is beautiful. It's a really great thing. I was so surprised at how much I invested, and how much Cap has really kind of imparted on my grandmother. She goes crazy for Cap because of those Marvel movies.
You have that connection for sure.
I'm just saying, I always just get a kick out of Captain America, and the Marvel films have just done an excellent job making me care about him. So now is looking at Cap in any capacity, like we've done with the Spider-Man issue, the Amazing Spider-Man 36 issue. Again, there's really any time Cap has an appearance, it has all the more weight to it because of what we kind of now the whole consensus of people kind of has most likely seen just the Marvel films. But I was just like, it's like basically the old feelings I had about his Cap just as is kind of the. Everyone likes Cap, but now it's like, now I know why everyone likes Cap.
I've probably told this story before, but I'm sure I'm one of many kids who grew up with their dad talking about how much they used to love running around with the trash can lid, pretending to be Captain America, and that story was just ingrained into my subconscious before I saw the original movie. So, Dragon, of course, I had that visceral reaction when I saw Captain America: The First Avenger when Steve Rogers picks up the trash can lid. So I'm a fan of the character that way. I kind of live it viscerally through my dad's experiences with it. He's definitely a bigger fan of it than I am. Granted, Dragon, I'm more of a counterculture individual myself, so it's like I appreciate him as a patriotic symbol, and we'll get into all that. But I don't know, some of the stuff, like let's just say in Civil War, I think I am kind of more on Stark's side than Steve's side. Actually, you and me did a whole big debate about that, like kind of getting into all the ethics and philosophies about the Civil War debate, and that was a fun podcast. But granted, I do kind of like, I do acknowledge that the Captain America films are great. As a character, I tend to lean more towards the Tony Stark side of things, hence my shirt, so. But, I mean, I do have a big fondness for the character, probably not as much as you. Like I said, I have a lot of I had a lot of nostalgia kind of living it through my dad, kind of like watching the movies through my dad, and my dad kind of being like, oh my God, I never thought they'd actually make this character and give him a movie that's just so accurately represents what the character is all about to him, you know? So that's really most of where my nostalgia and overall feelings for Cap comes in.
So with that said, let's go back to the very beginning. Again, 75 years have passed, folks. So I think it'd do us well to kind of let's pull a Cap ourselves, but in reverse. Let's go back 75 years instead of him coming out 75 years ago.
I'll be back in just one moment.
All right, so let's just go through the order here. So Captain America, no surprise here. Well, surprise to many. Captain America was not created by Stan Lee. Stan Lee is a very big player in Cap's history, but not quite yet. In the very beginning, 1941, that's the year, that's say 5 years ago, he was created by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, big names in the comic industry. And bear in mind, this is the timely comic days before we even have a Marvel. I'm talking about the days when we had our heroes before Cap were the Submariner and the Human Torch Android, which are barely even superheroes. They're more like kind of wartime buddies.
Right.
Anyway, so Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, back in the time was very influential to the history of comics, because without this, we really don't have Marvel the way we have it today. And basically, the way it goes that Joe Simon had a concept for a character that could embody America as it takes on Hitler and his Nazi bullies. Essentially, they wanted kind of a propaganda character of some sort, just to kind of rally. They basically get their point of view, because you got to remember, Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, they were Jewish, and obviously really not liking what the Nazis were doing. Really not liking the one their side represented.
I want to hit on something with that really quick, in that how much Joe Simon and Jack Kirby and growing up in their environment and everything really rings true to the overall ideal of what Steve Rogers is a person, more specifically why he got chosen for Captain America to begin with. You know what I mean? Because these guys, like you said, they were kind of like I don't know, like I've watched a documentary recently, Dragon, so I'm just pulling from stuff that I saw. But you know what I mean.
Yes, see, these two guys are really great friends, and they influenced Steve Rogers' character a great deal, because basically the way I think it breaks down to you is Joe Simon he represents kind of the underdog aspect, with the aspirations always getting shut down, saying, well, sorry, we can't use your work, as in with Steve Rogers, be like, sorry, kid, you're not fit for duty. And that's kind of what, like these are like two skinny kids in like kind of the segments of sections of New York, and they're Jewish, too, because you got to remember.
Exactly. It's two skinny kids in New York, with a lot of heart, a lot of pride and patriotism, who really want to get this character out there. And like you said, Dragon, who really are fearing just this whole uprising with Hitler in Germany and everything. I mean, you can't imagine like the fear they're going through with something like that.
And you got to remember, the reason I bring up the Jewish thing is because you got to remember, the comics industry, a large part of like the golden age of comics, that's all those creators, like about, I'm trying to think of I want to say almost all the creators were Jewish back in the days. Like, I forget where Bill Finger lies on that, but I know Bob Kane, the Siegel and Schuster. I mean, a lot of comic creators were Jewish, and the idea behind that, Neil Adams on Fat Man and Batman went through like a whole wonderful soliloquy about this, by the way, so I'm not doing it justice, but my point is, the industry the idea was like, tailors and like kind of basically, business owners who happen to be Jewish. Their children, their sons, they would a lot of times they go into printing and stuff, and that would eventually would lead them to comic strips and comics and so on and so on. That's how they get into the industry. That's why all the sons of the kind of the classic kind of Jewish store owners would go into comics. That's why most of the industry in the beginnings of it were made of. I don't know if Marston fits in this either, so forgive me for that. But my point is, like, the crux of like a lot of the big popular guys, it's all coming from the Jewish side of things. It's kind of wonderful that we get not only like we get two very large kind of American icons coming from that. You get Superman, we get Captain America in that regard, and of course, we get Batman and so many others stemming.
And it's interesting. Like, let's just kind of very briefly break down the dichotomy of Superman and Cap for just a moment, Dragon, because I think that's an interesting kind of compare and contrast there. Like, Superman came a little bit before Cap. And yes. I feel like Superman was like this idealized version of not just America, but just kind of like the big hero that everyone strives to be. And then Jack Kirby kind of brought it down to another level, kind of really thought, sought through the American values and really wanted to represent, like, okay, we just want a flagship character. We want to kind of take the iconography that was already established with Superman, because at that point, like you said, there weren't really all that many caped superheroes and superheroes that are straight up like good guys fighting crime and everything. You had Batman, you had like Submariner, like you said, that were kind of like war buddies and stuff like that. But really, Supes was the only like straight up Boy Scout good guy fighting crime, and they really wanted to take that and be like, let's just take it a step further, but also scale it back a bit, because make it a normal guy who happens to be in an extraordinary situation. And you know where I'm going with this. I'm just making a long, rambling soliloquy out of it. But any thoughts on Superman versus Cap?
Well, what I really wanted to mention with Superman is that, so Joe Simon is crafting the character, and he draws up a little sketch, nowhere near as beautiful as a Jack Kirby creation, but you know what I mean. He's drawing up like a little. He's basically Simon's come up with the idea, and Kirby's going to really bring it to life, as he tends to do. So, Simon has a concept for character embodied kind of the Super American, which was the initial name, Super American. Mm-hmm. And they kind of realized, well, it's Superman around. I don't want to have too many super characters going around. They said, there's not nearly enough captains, so let's mix in Captain in there somewhere. So Captain America. So you get the name. There's a little notation of give him a sidekick. So all of that kind of gets, let's give him a sidekick, call him Bucky, and that's just kind of tabled to the side. You're figuring out
Bucky was a kid's sidekick, by the way.
So did you not know that before?
No, I knew that. I totally knew that, Dragon. Like, I knew that as a kid. Like, I remember watching comic book doc. It's just something that slipped my mind.
I just wanted to make sure,
because when I think of Bucky, I just, like, nowadays, my mind is so ingrained in, like, the whole Winter Soldier, that side of Bucky Barnes. Bucky Barnes, he died. So my Captain America's side. He's never coming back ever. Sorry, just had to get that in. But, But no, Dragon, like I said, I do definitely remember learning of that Bucky was the kid's sidekick. But it took me a while to grasp that Bucky Barnes, the kid's sidekick, and Bucky Barnes, the badass Winter Soldier guy, were the same character. Anyways, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Anyway, so it's so again, we have basically basically kind of the mold of what we want this character to be mixed in with kind of the values of these guys. So again, you have kind of our underdog, the aspirations getting shut down a lot with Joe Simon, with Jack Kirby. We have, I think, the real heart of the characters there, because Jack Kirby in a neighborhood, Jack Kirby grew up in a neighborhood where you have street gangs, but they weren't necessarily I don't know how, I don't think it was more less ethnic, but it was more kind of separated by kind of class of where you grew up, sort of thing. It was there were gangs of if you grew up in the Bronx versus if you grew up a certain section of New York, sort of gangs.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so the point is, Jack Kirby, he get into scuffles and stuff, and the point is he never gave up, and he hated bullies because of stuff like that. And that's very, very much Captain America's mentality. Captain America doesn't give, I could do this all day, and he very much hates bullies, which we see wonderfully, put into the first Avenger when he's given his reasoning to Dr. Erskine. He really hates bullies. He doesn't want to just kill Nazis. He hates bullies. Sure. So again, those two elements married together really get you Captain America. I mean, just another cool thing about Jack Kirby that absolutely fits in with Steve Rogers. It's really a cool little tidbit is that he wanted many creators went overseas, and a lot of them they would basically do kind of the morale boosting stuff overseas. They would maybe transcribe some code, or kind of do these little propaganda things, kind of keep morale up, do some films, do stuff overseas. So Stan Lee, I believe, was also Stan Lee was also in service. So a lot of creators and everything did go overseas. And Jack Kirby in particular, though, he wanted to be in the field. He didn't just want to be on the side. And he went up to his commanding officer or someone, just told him look, I'm Jack Kirby. I draw Captain America. I want to be in the field. And they still I think out of worry that I don't want to be responsible for the guy who draws Captain America you can kill. But he just gave him don't get me wrong, he's in the field, but it's kind of less action than Jack Kirby wanted. He wanted really get out there. He basically told him you make the X's on the tank, basically make the mark on the tank that we're going to attack.
So, Dragon, it's just so fascinating to me that, reality mirrors fiction in that kind of way. And they brought back a lot of those elements, Dragon. It's when you think about it, Captain America, the First Avenger, is almost kind of in this weird meta way a Jack Kirby biopic.
Yeah, and again, it's almost kind of Steve Rogers, it'd be like Joe Simon and Jack Kirby would very much so be kind of, don't get me wrong, still Steve Rogers, but you're right, it is very, Jack Kirby's a lot of that's in there. If the kid who just wanted to serve, and he's there, and again, just these two are just like again, I just love. It's just so funny to me that, again, Stan Lee, he's really responsible for the way we see Captain America now. But again, at the core of it, you don't have that without, the original, everyone thinks it's just Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, but no, way back when it was Joe Simon and Jack Kirby. I'm just saying Joe Simon had a big to-do about it. So I want to make sure we always, I believe, we always got to pay tribute to Joe Simon.
Of course.
One of the big comic greats. Stan Lee doesn't have a job without Joe Simon. Let's not forget that. He was the big editor-in-chief for a while. Mm-hmm. So basically, they create Captain America, and they're working on. Basically, a year later, they finally get a book for him, and they have and they put it out there. It's timed really well, and just kind of the timing just paid off wonderfully when we get the first appearance of Captain America, first cover, one of the most famous covers in all of comics.
Isn't it so great that is literally the first appearance of him just punching Hitler? It could that couldn't be a better public introduction to him. You know what I mean?
It's kind of funny. It was a twofold thing where Martin Goodman, I think it's Martin Goodman, he wanted to get the comic out there, just get in circulation, for dollars and cents, but at the same time also, apart from just being the guy who wants to really sell a book, he wanted to make sure the war didn't end before he put the comic out. So he really wanted to make sure it was relevant.
Right.
So they got Captain America out as quick as they could in respect. And it's a very bold yet controversial cover. I mean, bold in the fact that what's one of the most awesome introductions you can have? You have a character dressed in red, white, and blue, but pretty much a guy dressed like a flag punching Hitler in the face. As his first appearance.
It is bold because, like we were discussing, Captain America is kind of an icon for all of America. So it's not just the one character doing it. It's like this big red, white, and blue guy doing it. You know what I mean? It's just an extra emphasis.
It's really kind of funny. The way we look at with the Marvel films, we look at kind of these, we wait to see these big iconic moments in comics kind of brought to the big screen at Marvel, and we always have those moments, especially with Civil War, where we just have yes, finally, it looks so great, where we can just say, we saw a guy turn really big, or, so on. So you get to see all these amazing things, and this was kind of the first case of that. We really got to see something like, even just before we even had, the films, we just could say, this is a super awesome Marvel moment of hey, a fictional character is going to, this fictional character we're debuting is punching this real bad guy in the face.
Right.
I'm just saying it's kind of one of the original awesome Marvel moments before we're waiting years and years later for to see things realized. I mean, Doctor Strange, I can't even get into it. How many awesome things we get to see realized? I mean, floating stuff, floating cloaks. Go on. So let's see, again, it's also controversial, and this is before Pearl Harbor. That's a big reason why it's controversial. America was trying to stay out of the war at the time. So this is I want to say a year or two before Pearl Harbor. I can't, actually, wait, was it months?
What year was it?
Well, this was, the comic was 41.
No, that would be 2 years before Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, that's what I thought, 2 years. I don't know why it was my backpedal. Anyway, the point is, it was before Pearl Harbor, and everyone wanted to stay out of it. I assumed it was a year they were kind of sitting up, and that was 2 years. Anyway, the point is, there was a lot of controversy. There was death threats were sent. I mean, obviously Nazis were upset with this too. You don't want to offend Nazis. That's not safe.
Oh God.
But I will say this: the mayor of New York, he came to their defense, and he leapt to these guys' defense, and he said, I support what these guys are saying here. Again, they deserve the right to say it. Any Nazis have to answer to me. It was really kind of a nice little sentiment. He didn't say that exactly. I'm just saying he was really kind of by their side of okay, well, yeah, well, we're going to show Nazis what they're doing is really sick, and we're not going to get invested in it quite yet. But again, he didn't have that say. In there,
right.
Point is, years later, then Pearl Harbor happens. Then, thankfully, Marvel has some change in the bank of, hey, who's the perfect kind of guy to champion America fighting the Nazis? Sounds a lot like Captain America.
And then we just get into the glorious Star-Spangled Banner for planned days.
Yeah, basically, we get the propaganda years. The propaganda years. In these years, but we'll build to kind of the famous Star-Spangled Man thing, which we love to pieces. But what we actually get in real life, we get the serials.
Well, no, I'm just saying, the Star-Spangled Man, it's kind of like a finely blended cocktail of all the propaganda years. You know what I mean?
Certainly. We get the serials, in which oddly enough, I forgot all about this. The original Captain America serials, he didn't have a shield; he just used a gun.
Oh dear. Oh god.
Completely forgot about that, by the way. Just the fact that, again, it's like there's some things that are really hard to sell back in the 40s. They really kind of streamlined things. Like Green Hornet had kind of a weird looking mask, and it was like, Batman and Robin, their costumes looked off, and it was like, there weren't any of the other villains in there. They had to really streamline some things for this series. But again, the sentiment was there. He's in like the red, white, and blue, well, black and white, red, white, and blue costume,
Yeah, sure.
And you have the cereals, you have the care packages filled with comics and rations. Importantly, with those comics, you have Captain America was one of the most popular comics you can get in the care packages, along with Superman. And Bucky is introduced during these years when Cap's going into combat. And of course, well, no, I mean Bucky was there from the beginning, but he's really kind of getting into vogue here. Bucky. I'm saying is let's just take a moment to talk about Bucky. He's really big overseas, working with Cap, and Bucky was oddly enough, Tiki. He was created in the vein of Robin. Robin was created to give the hero someone to bounce dialogue off of, and also like if the kids can't imagine themselves as Batman, they can imagine themselves as working with Batman. Same thing applied for Cap, with one difference. It was a little more politically motivated in that while they're like raising money for like war bonds and stuff, and like encouraging kids to recycle, it's very much like a Cub Scout sort of thing of like, hey, who's the ultimate Boy Scout to kind of help raise awareness for the war along with Captain America? Bucky. Every kid can imagine themselves like, I want to be just like Captain America, and this kid gets to fight along Captain America. Yeah, so
in modern day context, it's kind of dangerous because it's like, oh, I want to go, I'm a kid and I want to go right onto the battlefield and fight right alongside the soldiers, but I'd be granted, of course, times were different back then. It was a very, very nice, the heart was in the right place is what I'm trying to say, I guess.
Yeah, in the comics since, like nowadays when they look back on, they still use the Bucky as the young kid in the war. What they do is they actually have a fun way of kind of subverting that, Tiki, is that they age him up a few years, so he's like 15 instead of like 10.
Yeah, I think that's even more dangerous because like 15-year-olds like are more influenced to go into that kind of stuff.
My point is from like 15 from like 15 to 17 they age him up a little bit. And the cool thing is that they really make him like the most they make him like they make him super good at what he does. Now he's still the excellent sniper you saw in First Avenger. He's a kid with he has like a potty mouth compared to Captain America. It was really they play him as really tough as. Yeah, that's the thing. They play him really as tough as nails, and like you don't want to screw around with Bucky. And, like basically, Cap's the good cop, Bucky's the bad cop. That's the way they play. Like you really don't want to screw around. Like Bucky will, if he thinks a guy's a spy, he's gonna pull a knife at him and hold it to the guy's neck. That's the sort of Bucky that you had there. That's kind of how they look on it now. It's a way of kind of making Bucky a little more butch nowadays. In the past, as that is the young. Basically, again, back in the days, he was like the plucky sidekick. Now they're making he's gonna be the awesome sidekick.
So it's kind of like the transitional years between like, basically like Robin 2.0 into the Winter Soldier that we know today. It was kind of like the awkward teenage years, if you will, for that character.
Yeah, basically it's like nowadays when they reflect upon the young Bucky in the field, they make him more like a Jason Todd, a likable Jason Todd. Is that he's really tough as nails, but you like him.
Mm-hmm.
As the sidekick, back in...
Sure.
Anyway. Let's see. So now Stanley worked on an issue during the early years. Captain America worked on an issue which definitely got Cap in his mind, but also got I want to say got Stanley a start in the industry for Timely. I want to say. Let's see. Of course, just we've seen. We have. I mentioned. I'm sorry. I was thinking if there's any other propaganda stuff I'm forgetting about. Of course, Star Spangled Man we get in First Avenger, which kind of summarizes all of this. And one of the coolest things that's represented in that, which is also in the comics, which is really great, is that there's this wonderful charm of just the charming idea that Captain America exists as pop culture in the Marvel Universe, as he does in the MCU, as he does in real life.
I love that, Dragon. That was such a great. That was one of my favorite elements of First Avenger for me. Was that whole notion. And it kind of brings it full circle to what I was talking about with my dad being the kid running around with the trash can lid. You know what I mean? It was like, that was definitely an awe moment for me.
Yeah, and again, it's such a cool idea, and that's I think Star Spangled Man, if it's not everyone's favorite, it's at least most people's favorite part of that film. Just that whole little sequence of one, he's in the exact costume. If like seeing a costume brought from literally the costume from the first appearance, even as the triangular kind of pointed shield instead of the giant circular one, which he eventually gets, which of course very iconic.
Hmm.
So it's just the whole idea of tying the propaganda into Captain America was just, it was a stroke of genius and saying, well, yeah, what's going on in real life actually is going on in the fictional universe, which is just it's brilliant how it comes back later on when we bring Captain America into the present. That plays better. So let's build to there. So war's over. Basically, war goes on, and eventually the war ends. Hooray! Post-war, Cap is kind of on a downswing. He's
Yeah,
becoming
that
less
makes sense
relevant.
because it's really interesting, Dragon. Because, like you said, Captain America, beyond a bunch of other superheroes, like beyond Superman, he really was a vehicle of propaganda, a very, very inspiring and very effective vehicle of propaganda. But nonetheless, like you said, it's like after the war is over, like, okay, who does he fight now?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the cost of a patriotic slash propaganda, inspired hero. I mean that you have a short lifespan because it's only going to be relevant for the conflict he was brought up in.
Sure,
If
sure.
that's over, how much more mileage can you get out of him? Basically, there was a real you got to see briefly a cling to desperation. They had Captain America, Commie Smasher, which was their attempt to bring Captain America into the paranoia kind of Russian Cold War kind of
Right,
era
right.
we were getting into. And
Oddly
just,
enough, which is also going to be eventually a bigger thing with him in the comics and a big part of his character, but here not so much.
yeah, yeah, they was really getting desperate, and they're like, okay, we got to make Cap relevant. And here's a really interesting thing, Tiki, is that Captain America shared the fate that Batman almost suffered. Is
Sure,
that
sure.
a lot of characters, especially after they were attacked by Frederick Wortham, which I don't believe Cap really was, because again, he was kind of out of it. In the 50s, that's when the Frederick Wortham thing really fired up. That's when Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, they really kind of fell. DC fell under fire a little more than Marvel, but it was the whole industry. I don't want to just like make it just DC, but I'm saying DC had more heroes at the time than Marvel did.
Mhm.
So basically, Cap sales really they had really bad sales at the time in 1949, which went so bad he eventually got canceled. Batman had really bad sales going on, and if were it not for the 60s Batman TV show, Batman would have been canceled.
Of course, of
Because
course.
Batman basically was able to limp on to the 60s because the 50s were the real sci-fi years and 60s just was like the real campy years, and basically again TV show really kind of boosted the ratings and the sales, and that's why Batman still carried on to this day. Captain America didn't have that luxury, so again after his relevancy was out,
Captain
okay,
America didn't have a show starring William Shatner to kind of reinvent his image.
no. No, we didn't. Unfortunately, Cap bit the dust, and basically, essentially a decade, like a little over a decade, went on. And then, thankfully, we enter the reintroduction of Captain America, which is ushered in by a man who wrote at least one issue of Captain America back in the day, Stan Lee.
Mhm. This was such an inspired idea, and this really does kind of set the precedent for the whole character, the whole man out of time concept.
Yeah, you know what's really touching about this, Teague? It's kind of, in a way, I bring up the whole Stan Lee wrote that one issue, because one, it's important, that's how he gets his break in the timely in a way, but also, what's so nice about it is that it's kind of Stan Lee repaying a debt, if you think about it, is that
Sure.
Captain America gives Stan Lee a real break into the medium, and at the same time, Stan Lee, many of the other comic writers, again, because a lot of them served, and also, Captain America was kind of a favorite. He was kind of the old serial hero, but in comics.
Exactly, right.
And you had the idea that he was there's a lot of old school love for Captain America mixed with this new angle. The new angle being Stan brought Cap back as a man out of time, which is a brilliant idea. Which again, we love men out of time. Looking Back to the Future, that's a story all about a man out of time. We love the man out of time story. And this is before Back to the Future. Right now, we just had the H.G. Wells story. It's about all we had.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the first time we saw him was in the Avengers being reintroduced there,
Yes,
right?
Avengers #4
Okay,
was when
gotcha.
Cap was reintroduced. That was the first time we saw him since about like 11 years later.
So I can just imagine the context of like being a kid then and being reintroduced to Captain America in that way, like like, oh my god, like I've heard about this guy. Maybe they've read some of his old comics, maybe they haven't, but they probably have an image of him at least from pop culture, and being reintroduced to him in that way is like, oh my god, this is a genuine like World War II hero coming back, and he's got all the qualities of that generation with him. I don't know, Dre. It's just really interesting to think about, like, like remember when you were there, because that is definitely the generation that my dad grew up with. in Captain America with the comics and everything was kind of the resurgence era in the 60s.
Well, yeah, I think you hit upon something very, very accurate in that deal. We have, I think, the reason Cap was brought back, and we get this really wonderfully exchanged in dialogue in the Avengers between Coulson and Steve Rogers on the jet before he meets the other Avengers. Is the idea that basically what I'm saying with the old school love for for Captain America mixed with this new angle, but the purpose behind it is, I believe, to bring the idealism that the character's always been associated with in the war times, and bring that kind of that idealism, that kind of simplistic value, simplistic in a good way, into the changing times of the 60s, where now we're in upswing, not just in terms of like what's actually going on in the time period, but also Marvel, because Marvel basically Stan Lee ushered in, bear in mind, again, you had the Avengers, so Cap wasn't just the first thing to kick off the 60s, but it was pretty early, though. Is that
what year was this when Cap and the Avengers?
Let's see, so that's it was 11 years after 49, so it's that was, oh wow. Well, I mean, they said a little over, I don't know, maybe it was a little over a decade. My point is the Fantastic Four kicks things off first and foremost, and that's in 61, Spider-Man 62, Iron Man 64, Avengers. It could be 65. It's between 64 and 65.
So it's post-Kennedy assassination. That's basically what I wanted to know.
I think so. I think that's...
Yeah, Kennedy was 63, so, okay.
Point is, I think it's after Iron Man. Iron Man, I'm pretty sure.
I'm just pointing out the Kennedy thing because, like you said, America was in a very, very turbulent time after the Kennedy assassination. That was like the breaking point that led to kind of like the counterculture of the mid 60s.
Right. Anyway, so yeah, the big thing with Marvel is again we're ushering Stan Lee's kind of in the fray now, and a really kind of, again, he pretty much invents kind of the Marvel Universe as we see it now, because, again, Fantastic Four onwards, and again, I just love the notion that, I don't mean just the term Fantastic Four is a brief thing, it's important, just the whole thing of Marvel is that, again, he was going to retire, again, his wonderful wife, Joan Lee, always, I love that he mentions her interview, she voiced Madam Web on the Spider-Man animated series, she, she's very key in why we have the Marvel Universe now, because he's getting kind of fed up of doing these monster stories, which if you look at the heroes we had before Captain America, in a way, those again are kind of those monster years of Timely and Marvel, which were kind of doing somewhat of a monster story with like really tame monsters in terms of Submariner and Human Torch, a guy who lights himself on fire, and kind of a guy who's like Atlantean underwater.
Right.
They're tamer, but they're more kind of clean looking monsters essentially.
Sure.
And again, he's gonna basically he wants to tell a story he wants to do, and she says, "Well, look, if you're gonna quit anyway, just do a story you want to do, so you can go on a high note." And he does that with the Fantastic Four. Works. We have a team now, awesome.
Yeah.
And then it kind of goes off from there. We have all these other characters, and it's kind of a chain reaction from that point forward. And again, working on the Avengers, which is comprised of, initially it's Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, and Ant-Man and Wasp. Issue 4. Bring back Captain America. I mean, we bring back that idealism. I'm sure kind of not only just kind of inspired Stan Lee of like what the charm of the superhero, kind of charm of like being a war hero, and this charm of like just kind of doing what you can to help out. Very much again the crux of what makes a hero is kind of bringing that in the fray just to kind of whip the Avengers into shape in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And one last thing I mentioned before, I guess we kind of go into kind of Cap progressing from just kind of he's in the fray and he's given again man out of time, and that's just kind of adjusting to the time. Here's the crux you get with Captain America. The really cool thing, Tiki, is now you have in this era like books down the line, we have Jack Kirby and Stan Lee now working together, and this ushers in the Marvel method, which we didn't have before, because now it's under Marvel instead of being under Timely. So with the Marvel method, you have the famous thing of Stan Lee would just kind of describe a story that Jack Kirby would draw it, because he goes what he kind of infers what Stan's looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And importantly, and this is very important for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is that Jack Kirby has a very cinematic style, which, don't get me wrong, he probably brought a little bit of with Joe Simon, with Stan Lee just kind of letting him go nuts with it, being really in tune with like them having kind of a working thing at this point. You get to see the really cinematic action stuff with Captain America, which we see all over the place, especially in Winter Soldier and Civil War.
Right.
You don't really have those close combat awesome fights without Jack Kirby's new take on it's like a fresh take with Jack Kirby on Captain America again. It's like a new way of doing Captain America stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Anyway, so I guess his point is like just transitioning now to Cap's going on for decades. And again, as you mentioned, Tiki, after Kennedy, we're definitely in kind of uncertain times, and as time's going by, we're getting the more kind of Marvel's very famous for reflecting the issues of the time in the comics.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, definitely. We've seen things like Luke Cage, of course, come out of it, Black Panther, but what we're going to talk about here is the emergence of Falcon, which, of course, Dragon, I think Falcon, maybe even to the same level as Cap himself, or almost to the same level, is a big fan favorite character in the MCU right now, and in the comics in general.
Oh yeah, you got to remember, Falcon essentially, Falcon had two purposes, and they're very key purposes. I mean, actually, it's three levels with Falcon. Is that one? The civil rights is going on at the time. The civil rights is going on, so they fear if we're going to bring in a kind of a new character for Captain America, let's make him a little more kind of like make him different. Let's make him like reflective of the times. Where let's make an awesome black character. We get Falcon.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, I mean, Cap. Stan Lee hates sidekicks. That's something you should always remember. Stan Lee hates sidekicks. Hence Spider-Man. We don't have, again, because he hates sidekicks, we get Spider-Man, who's a teenage, he would be a teenage sidekick like Bucky, but now he's his own hero. That's what you get with Stan Lee. He kind of has these wonderful solutions of, what can I do instead of doing a Robin? I'll make him the star of the book.
Right.
And in this case, basically he gives Cap a partner in Falcon. It's like a buddy cop thing with Falcon. And Falcon's purpose is that he educates Captain America on the modern world. He serves as like Cap's friend on the side who he works cases with and missions with. And kind of educates him like not only just the state of the world is catching him up like how to use a payphone or anything, but not not a payphone, but I'm trying to think of not a cell phone, but like the modern things of the 60s modern era. It's like talking about it's like talking about the Flintstones now, and now we're saying the modern.
Of course.
Forgive me. Anyway, like what I'm saying more so there is like he's educating like kind of it's less black. It's less black and white now. He's kind of working at showing the moral gray of things these days, and with Falcon, just kind of showing that things aren't as perfect and kind of clean cut as you remember it, Cap. There's more levels to what you're examining here, which definitely leads us in going into I guess the 70s a little bit more with Watergate.
Yeah, and this is sorry. Never mind. This is definitely the thing that kind of struck my fancy the most when I was kind of researching the history today, Dragon. I think it's absolutely fascinating that we have this idea of Cap that, of course, I feel like Cap is kind of split up into two eras, like the super patriot and then also the one who's kind of like been a patriot for so long, served under the government for so long, that he's questioning what that means. And that is definitely the Cap we have going on right now. That's the Cap that we've seen throughout a lot of the MCU. But, Dragon, I think it's absolutely fascinating that you can literally pinpoint the exact point in history, in American history, that went on to Watergate.
Oh yeah, it's again, it's just this is the origin of the idea we see wonderfully played in Winter Soldier. This idea of distrusting government is that Captain America again we're kind of ushering in with kind of Falcon just kind of educating Cap in the way the world works, just saying it's not with the old civil rights thing going on, it's not exactly there is a cost to some of the things we fight for. Pretty much, just kind of showing him like it's not as simple as like we have one singular enemy here. It's like there are layers to conflicts that are going on. With Watergate, you have the idea Cap follows again, kind of in the similar vein. Like we're following kind of blindly here, and he's kind of learning. Cap doing his job. He learns the hard way in this basically famous moment. Where, like I forget what the bad guy's name is. Basically, I say this because there's a few hooded bad guys in the Marvel universe. The hate monger who was revealed to be a clone of Adolf Hitler. It's really weird, don't ask. And there's this is the other version of that character. It's like another hooded figure, and basically it's unmasked off screen, off panel. Steve Englehart did this. Steve Englehart, Tiki, he's the creator of Star-Lord, and he's also Batman. I've met this guy.
Mm-hmm.
He basically unmasked off screen. It's heavily intimated that because he didn't want to risk really waving some flags and getting the White House to go after him or anything, or basically get like a real outcry going on, controversy. It's heavily implied. Everyone kind of knows, okay, it's Richard Nixon under the mask.
Sure, of course.
So pretty much the bad guy, along with basically with Watergate going on, and they have this basically some bad stuff going on at the White House, and it's all linked to the president. So basically this corruption of this bad guy goes all the way up to the White House, which ties into Watergate, which is Nixon.
Mm-hmm.
So Yeah, this really shakes Cap to the fundamental core, and really, basically, in the movies, it was like we have to disband Shield, and here it's more so like I can't. Kind of in a place where we're at with Civil War right now, which kind of leads us to speculate on the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Honestly, Cap does kind of a Spider-Man No More thing, where he abandons the Captain America identity. However, he comes back with Nomad.
Oh God, do you think
So
they're going to go that way? I think they're just going to have him be just kind of a vigilante.
well,
I don't necessarily think they're going to give him a name.
yeah, that's the thing, T. I think they're going to go the kind of the vigilante. Well, maybe less vigilante. He's more like he's Steve Rogers now. He's Steve
Yeah,
Rogers, which
yeah,
again in
that's
the
what I'm
comics
saying,
we kind
right.
of have now. He's just
Kind
he
of like
goes around.
Gotham, like Jim Gordon, vigilante. You know.
Anyway. The thing with Nomad, I mean, the Russo brothers have joked. I don't know how serious they're. They've joked about Nomad, and they've said like, and now he's going to be like they're big comic fans. They know like, oh yeah, we're going to do Nomad next, right?
Sure.
So I mean, how serious? It's the Marvel. We've seen how faithful the MCU can be to these sort of things. Like, they almost gave Zemo the mask. You don't know. Like we might have him in like a new stealth suit of some kind that resembles Nomad. And they're not going to call him Nomad. They might have a code name.
I could
Who knows?
definitely see that, just kind of like a recreation of the suit without calling him Nomad.
Or again, they could just give him a code name like Nomad as Steve. Who knows? We have no idea. My point is, again, this is the aspect, and I kind of it's the thing speculating on whether they're going to go, how far they're going to go with Cap as kind of a free agent now, not under the Captain America moniker. But if going in comics, it's really hard to kind of change the name of books, so they got to keep him Captain America. So okay, eventually he comes back and becomes Captain America because we don't want to change the print.
Right.
No more Nomad. Nomad's a phase. And pretty much, so again, that's 70s. Let's just say kind of 80s onwards to kind of generalize a little bit. Again, he's fitting into what I said up earlier, is that he's kind of he's very much Uncle Sam until 9/11.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
He's pretty much Uncle. Again, it's like what I said, getting into Captain America. It's like you like him in the sense of he's apple pie's Americana. How can you not like Captain America? Everyone looks up to him. Okay,
And of
we
course,
get
they
it.
do have that element that kind of resounds throughout the comics in that era of him kind of representing the wholesome values of like the 1940s, and to a lesser extent, maybe the 1950s, in kind of a post-60s culture, which the comics was written in. So there is still kind of that man at a time thing that they're playing with. I don't want to paint a picture of him as just, as just kind of the Boy Scout and nothing else. There were interesting elements of his character they were playing around with.
Yeah, sure, but there was also kind of the parody, like there was always, unfortunately, there was the pointed stereotype of Cap for the longest time. There was a pointed stereotype until the Marvel films came about. I would argue, that Cap was kind of made fun of as like he doesn't know how to the modern technologies work, or basically they play him like an old man, or they play him like either an old man, or they play him like the Uber Boy Scout.
Well, okay.
Again, not the comics. I'm just saying that was the perception of Cap. That was the pointed perception of
Right,
Captain America.
right.
Like you'll see in parody videos and stuff before we get the intricacies, like why this guy can make that work versus, oh yeah, it's just this Iron Man can make fun of this guy, like no problem. Like look how silly he is. Like, he's Uncle Sam wearing a flag.
Well, I mean, Iron Man can still make fun of him, no problem. But he's Iron Man. Come on.
Yeah. Importantly, so 9/11 happens. So that happens, and really what I think we get from, of course, we talked in excess about one of the most wonderful representations Marvel did about 9/11, with the Spider-Man issue 36
Oh yeah.
thing. Here more so, I think what we get following that, and just also this is there were a few other kind of tie-in 9/11 comics. As I told you, there were a few things. There was also Cap, he was going through an issue. Not from that Spider-Man thing, but I want to say an issue of Captain America was that he was looking for he was digging through the rubble, looking to save people, and so on and so forth. And also, there was an aftermath of him being sent overseas to kind of go after the people responsible. So there was a little bit of
And again, that's really fascinating to me as well, because we can already put that into a historical context where the War on Terror, when we look back on it, it was kind of a mess. Not to open a can of worms or anything. I don't like to talk politics on this channel, but Dragon, how interesting is it that Captain America kind of follows through the times and is a face when we need it? And of course, Dragon, I was right there. I was just old enough to kind of appreciate the gravity of 9/11. So I got to admit, when the War on Terror first kind of started up, I was right there in the thick of the paranoia. Certainly not as much as the adults around me were, but I had a grasp on it. So I don't know. I just think it's interesting that through thick and thin, in the context of the comic books, Captain America has always kind of been there to be almost the avatar of how America should respond to it.
Yeah, and the really cool thing about this is that this is a way of making Cap kind of relevant again in an entirely different way. It's I love that we're kind of with this in the fallout of that. Again, it's kind of picking up on that Watergate idea. But it was, again, they kind of set him back after the whole Watergate thing, but the idea was still up in the stratosphere of the idea of Cap distrusting the government. He goes through something really traumatic that makes him distrust the thing he was just kind of following blindly. And now we're kind of doing that again on much more of a kind of more less. Again, it's less like someone lied and someone's distinctly the bad guy. It's more of like now we're in a lot of moral gray of like what's right, what's wrong, which puts Cap in an interesting place of he's questioning authority more than just like distrusting authority, which again is kind of this wonderful tapestry got weaved. And more so, we're back to what we had in the 40s of it's Steve Rogers. We're looking at him less as Captain America, the icon, more of Steve Rogers. The underdog is the focus over the man dressed as a flag. I like to call it. He's more like it's the fact where whatever move Cap makes, it's not just black and white. It's not simple. He has to kind of, if he does something good, he's going to be perceived as the bad guy, or vice versa. And it's sort of like a no-win situation. That was pretty much the war on terror to an extent. Of like you're kind of doing things that just make even if you do that seems right, it still might make you feel a little dirty. That sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it was good that they were kind of getting into the, of course, the complications that arose from the War on Terror and stuff like that. It wasn't like in the 40s with just like, the black and white, like, Hitler is bad, let's punch Hitler in the face. You know what I mean? It's like, we didn't have an issue where Captain America just punched Osama bin Laden in the face. You know what I mean? It wasn't simple.
Yeah, with that, Tiki, you're hitting upon. Stanley had a very famous quote where he said, after 9/11 happened, there wasn't just someone doing a thing where it's like, hey, let's go after and punch a Muslim sort of thing, like with let's go punch Hitler in the jaw again.
Sure.
It's not that simple, and what I love about that is that again, it's looking at we can't just in that same vein we can't just look at Captain America as an icon of like, hey, let's send Cap overseas and have him go after the bad guys. But no, it's like we're much like we care for the people going overseas, or we care about whoever is just involved. It's Steve Rogers over Cap. It's not just like we can't just send the icon because now we can't look at America in quite the same sense of it. We're looking at the guy who embodies that.
Exactly. Right.
So speaking of just kind of moral grays and just looking at getting to know Steve Rogers, getting to know kind of Steve Rogers, the guy, and kind of weaving this tapestry of, okay, now we've evolved Steve Rogers to a point where now he's kind of questioning authority. He's not quite sure what is right anymore. I mean, he knows what's right, but he's going with his gut over what his superiors are telling him, I should say. So he gets thrown a big loop that was a big deal in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
Certain return. Bucky's return. Return of Bucky.
Right. I'm sorry, I didn't know if that was
better known
or not.
that was the point is the Winter Soldier.
Winter
Soldier, which again we have an excellent Captain America movie about this story, but we also had in the comics first. So, but
I would say I think the comic, it's good from what I've heard. I haven't really approached it. Like that is where my the Winter Soldier Dragon is one of those comics like on the fringes. Like I definitely heard a lot about when it was coming out. I never actually read it myself, but the one thing I did keep hearing about was like, oh, Bucky Barnes, and so that was kind of what formed the early misconception for me, where I was kind of confused between Bucky Barnes, the kid's sidekick, and the Bucky Barnes from Winter Soldier. So that's kind of my overall experience with it. I'm sure you have more to say about it since Winter Soldier is your favorite movie and everything. Favorite MCU.
Yeah, basically, with Winter Soldier, again, it was a comic by Ed Brubaker. A lot of also hands too, like that for the tie and stuff. I'm not sure, also figuring out in context how it worked with Captain America as a whole, because I know Fabi and Nicieza, who created Deadpool, also worked on this story to some extent. So it's kind of basically when they adapt it to they're kind of borrowing from a few other Cap stories too. So it's all kind of mainly from Winter Soldier. Then my point is just when that story came out, and when I got wind of the whole thing that was being done there, it's a story that until I saw it in Winter Soldier, the film, it's an idea that never should have worked. It's like an idea that just on paper just sounds like Marvel used to have the old saying of it's in comics overall. It's not just Marvel. It's the idea of these are characters that we keep dead. Thomas and Martha Wayne, Uncle Ben, Gwen Stacy, and and Bucky Barnes, and like those are the characters we never bring back, and they kind of broke one of those with Bucky Barnes.
Right.
Well, now kind of with Gwen, but let's not open that can of worms. You know what I mean? It's like we're
Yeah,
kind of over time.
I was tempted to go there, but yeah, I don't want to touch that with 10 foot pole.
Because unlike on the show era, when you bring back a dead character, it's actually a big deal.
Oh God.
Well, at least like a famously dead character, not just like a character like, oh, well, we didn't see a body, so they're alive. Not that sort of thing. Just like someone like, okay, well, Bucky famously dies, sacrificed himself, and Cap, last thing he saw, when he wakes up, when the Avengers unthaw him in the comics, his first word is Bucky, because you just saw Bucky get killed in front of you. Basically, he's on the rocket when he falls into the ice, like, oh my God, Bucky's going to blow up.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, it's seeing it in the movie the way I'm sure the book has redeeming qualities that sells you on it to an extent, but I'm just saying I never liked the idea of bringing Bucky back until I really saw it in the film. The film, the way they did it for me was seeing it through Cap's perspective. I think sells you on it more because again, you get no Steve Rogers, you get to see like I don't know, that to me makes you buy it more than just like it's not just like hey, I'm back and all this.
I kind of wish he would have had more screen time in the first Captain America movie. That's the only thing that would have sold it for me even more.
Yeah, but again, I think we have really impactful bits in the movie, like the whole I'm with you till the end of the line. I think still kind of delivers on that. I mean, Bucky's a big deal, and we still have bits in the first one. I think the way he went out, though, still, I wish they. I mean, it kind of helps you buy that he's alive a little bit more, but I still wish they just hadn't fallen on the rocket like it was in the comic. It's like him just.
Right.
I still, every time I watch First Avenger, like the two things is still in that film. Like, I think I'm better on the whole Bucky death now because it's like, well, it's like you can buy how he survived more, but I still don't like that the third act thing where how Cap lands the thing. It's still a little off.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so. But yeah, I think you get getting to see things through Steve Rogers' perspective. Really, you get to see the whole story is spent on Steve Rogers not giving up on a friend when when he knows absolutely he can still be saved. Again, going with his gut over what people are telling him. He says it's investing in Steve Rogers believing in his friend. That kind of sells you on the story because otherwise it will play like the way I always feared it was going to play is that, hey, Cap, I'm alive because this happened and this happened and this happened and then I went to get coffee and then this happened. Again, that's the worst way you could handle that sort of thing, make it a convoluted. The thing that happens in comics like the way Cap, we'll get to it later, I guess, but just sometimes when they bring back comic characters, it can be really stupid. It can be.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a lot of the time when you bring, especially if it's like a big, sometimes it can be done, rarely can it be done well. Can you bring someone back with that feeling really contrived or making it feel really like, oh, really, we're just bringing them back, so does death matter anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Again, Arrow being an example where pretty much everyone but I think one of the parents is alive.
Right.
So it's getting ridiculous. Anyway, so let's see. I was trying to think of something else. Importantly, last thing, the crux of why the story, like bringing Bucky back, actually has worked. Also, in the grand scheme of the comics, I don't just mean the movie. The movie, I think, is the best representation of that. But bringing Bucky back, I think, played better just after he was brought back in the story. After his mind was saturated, I think they used instead of the realization that we get in the movie, Tiki, it was like using the cosmic cube to fix him.
Yeah, sure.
So again, remember the cosmic cube does a whole bunch of other stuff, but anyway, the point is the idealism, the whole story with Bucky coming back is it shows Captain America's idealism trumping kind of the cynicism of today. Like, no, you can't save him, you got to gun him down. Look at this guy; he's got a metal arm. You don't want to mess with that guy. But no, he's my friend. I can reach him, and he does.
Mm-hmm.
So again, so Bucky's back. So again, we're getting Cap into a point where his idealism is really kind of delivering at the end of the day, and also again, some really the Marvel universe is getting shaken up in many ways. So then we eventually get a story that kind of continues from that story. We get Civil War.
Yeah, and I honestly don't have a ton to say about this that we haven't already said in other Civil War discussions because, again, with the Winter Soldier, I mean, I was a little bit more invested in it, but only after I had heard that Cap died. Of course, I feel like Civil War, that is one of the big selling points with it, beyond just, of course, the whole, like, Cap versus Stark thing, is the big whole death of Captain America. I mean, of course, I realize it happens, like, a little in an issue after the actual event and everything.
Yeah.
But still, it was kind of like the thing that punctuated Civil War was that whole event, and kind of
just the
Civil War.
here's the cliff notes of it: is Cap and Iron Man are opposite sides in reversal of their assumed viewpoints. It's like usually classically Cap would be with the government, and Iron Man on the other side of that. He values his own technology, but now that's kind of been reversed, and it kind of goes from the movie as well, more so with the movie than the original source material. But you know what I mean? It's pretty much like they're opposing viewpoints, and in the story, Cap we get to see Cap as the underdog again, and he's basically in both versions. Cap is the underdog who's again championing the right to choose. And again, that's what that story is all about. Cap's arguing we need a right to choose what to do instead of the choice should be in the super people's hands instead of like being forced to register.
So he's basically the man who kind of really hits on the primary value of democracy in a way. You know what I mean?
Essentially, yeah. And again, we get to see this. Basically, what I'm mostly getting is that these themes are like they're going to express. They're trying to express this really well in the Civil War story, but again, I think they really dropped the ball with how Iron Man's perceived. Some people have said the same thing about Cap, so maybe it's just because I'm skewed on that. But I mean, seriously, Iron Man uses bad guys. Like he uses supervillains as his muscle, which to me seems like a real that's
what I've heard. Yeah, right.
Like to me, that's just obvious. Like, okay, Iron Man's in the wrong there. He's using bad guys. That just indicates wrong to me. But anyway, I think the film tells what Civil War's trying to get across a lot better than it does. It's the film. The film tells the story in a more compelling and thought-provoking way. It's raising some additional ideas. It's also tying in some additional stuff from Winter Soldier, lumping it into Civil War. It's kind of, again, I think it's mixing things in just the right way. And importantly, again, the films, just to talk about the films overall. So we've talked about the films in excess in other videos. I'm just going to streamline it with like this statement here. Basically, the films have done an excellent job of investing us in Cap. As always, in kind of Civil War is kind of the pinnacle of that. Of like, Cap, in the end, he does the right thing, even if it causes him to lose everything over and over again. It's what he does. Again, he kind of gave up his life to save New York, save the world in the first Avenger. Again, he's willing to let himself die to kind of save Bucky, and also again to destroy S.H.I.E.L.D., all that stuff. He'll do that. He gave his life a second time in Winter Soldier, and thankfully his his optimism paid off, and that Bucky saved his life. And all of that is. Basically, we're lucky that Cap, he keeps losing things in some respect over and over again. And in this case, he lost his faith in S.H.I.E.L.D. at the end of Winter Soldier. And in Civil War, of course, he lost his friendship with Iron Man to a large extent. At the very least, he's changed. The status quo has changed in a very fundamental way at the end of Civil War. Right?
I'm sorry, I didn't know when you were done. I was wanting to jump in, but I literally didn't know when you were going to finish. So yes, I agree. I agree. That was a very artfully delivered monologue there about the movies.
I'm sorry.
Oh God. No, I agree. The state of the Captain America moving forward is very much in question with the movies after Civil War, for sure.
See, folks, I'm just towing a line where I don't want to talk about the movies for an hour. I'm just towing that line, folks. Sorry.
Dragon, I honestly think when you look back on it, I mean, I might be kind of like the one who's less enthused about the character of the two of us in this conversation, but really just looking at the whole trilogy of Captain America films as a whole, it is definitely the most perfect trilogy that Marvel's done so far. And I would even wager to say it's up. I mean, it's not quite Toy Story, it's not quite Star Wars. I'd wager to say it's probably a better trilogy than, let's say, The Godfather overall, because it doesn't have a stinker like Godfather Part 3, So, I don't know. I'd say it's getting up there in the pantheon of great trilogies at this point. It's not quite up there with the all-time greats, but, every movie I feel like is great because it tells a different era of Cap's legacy. The first one is obviously just this treasure trove of awesome wartime stuff and really just a love letter to Captain America of that decade. And then Winter Soldier, Dragon, of course, that is one that I am not quite as high on as other people just because I'm not as big of an action guy, and I think that movie is a little bit too action heavy for me. Like, okay, I get it, car chase, another car chase, great, another car chase.
But T, let me remind you, just real briefly, just again, guy with a shield hit by like a grenade is fired. He is thrown off an overpass into a bus that is then hit by a car that flips over.
And you just explained why I am numb to action scenes in movies.
No, I'm saying that is an action scene like you've never seen before. Like Cap is literally he's hit by he's flung off. All of that, that's like an action scene you've never seen before.
All right, I hear you. Look, it's subjectivity, Steven. You know, and there is good character development in Winter Soldier. That's what makes it a good movie for me, especially with Falcon and Bucky and everything like that. Dragon, you're obviously much more emotionally invested in Winter Soldier than I am. And Civil War, what can we say? I mean, I think Civil War kind of tied up not just all of the philosophies of kind of the modern age Captain America and where Captain America is kind of now in the comic books, the more cynical side of him. But it also kind of tied together all the ideas that we've been building up throughout the MCU so far into a nice little package going forward into the other realms of Phase 3. You know, we already saw that kind of pay off with Doctor Strange, you know, so lots of cool stuff on the horizon.
Yeah, but real quick, I want to also mention the of course, the death. The death. What you brought something up very interesting earlier on, Tiki. I think it would be remiss if we didn't.
Okay.
You brought up the whole, bringing back. In a way, we brought Cap back kind of after or around the Kennedy assassination.
Sure.
And again, remember when Cap died in the comics, that was pretty much kind of the Kennedy equivalent in comics. Seriously, it was. I mean, I'm not joking with that. I mean, the way, first of all, he's shot by a sniper as the first kind of killing bullet.
Sure.
And again, it's a very public death. It's like a dying for your sins.
It wasn't like the death of Superman either, where it was like a big built-up event. You know what I mean? How it came out of nowhere.
Yeah, Cap. Yeah, exactly. That's the. Yeah, it came out of nowhere. It was kind of a conspiracy mystery thing to unravel, and it was a big deal. And it was played. I think they played it smart with the death and the loss. There was a great thing where they had we got to see the other Marvel characters really kind of lamenting over the loss of Cap, and eventually we did smart things when Cap was out of the picture. Like Bucky took on the role of Captain America, while to honor his friend, which was interesting storytelling. And basically, with that whole death and kind of the fall, it's called Fallen Sun, by the way. Just the whole the world without Captain America stuff is called Captain America Fallen Sun.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of that is just cementing Captain America's importance and just why he was valued. Like the wonderful bit where Spider-Man's going to visit Cap's grave, and he's thinking about how the Cap saved him from the Hulk that one time when he's fighting the Rhino.
Right.
It's you got a lot of, Punisher is trying to live up to Captain America's because he idolized. I mean, Punisher has a lot of respect for Captain America. He tried to kind of carry on the legacy of Cap. He failed miserably, but he tried.
Mm-hmm.
It was the killing thing. Really didn't mix that well. Anyway, so eventually Cap returns again to whatever craziness the Marvel Universe faces, which again, it's pretty much any time you bring Captain America back, it's through really ridiculous means, or it's through, the first time you bring Captain America back, it's through, it's great because that's his big reintroduction, but they've either killed Cap off or they've done things that have taken him out of the equation because they want to see other people in the costume. Which we've had twice. Again, we've had Bucky, both excellent replacements. I will say we've had Bucky and we've had Falcon. Falcon is a current additional Captain America we have now. And again, that's right now in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're wondering if anything does happen, or if Chris Evans ever just doesn't want to do Captain America anymore. Again, we have two people who could take up the mantle.
Sure.
And just with the replacements. I mean, they do these weird things sometimes when they bring Cap back into the fray. The first time, the way they brought him back after his death, I won't bore you with all these points. Was a time bullet, which I won't even tell you how weird that is. But they do this thing where they kind of undo all the good stuff they did, his death and making accounts. The way how we bring him back, because again, you always have to walk that line. How do we bring someone back without making it sound ridiculous? They didn't do that well with Captain America. We shot him with a magical time bullet.
Oh God! Right.
Which is really silly. And then recently, they super aged Steve Rogers, so he couldn't be Captain America anymore. They made him his actual age, which is kind of weird. It's we're doing everything just to keep him out of the suits and get a new guy in the suit, right? And just the point is, again, we'll have Cap will be in good hands, even if it's in with a different character. But I like now that the films have have put more focus on Captain America, and that's why the films have put more focus on Captain America in the comics, is what I'm getting at, is that the fact now that we care so much about who's wearing the Captain America suit, the reason why Captain America has all this stuff happening to him, why he's in the focus. Whether sometimes they could go a little off the reservation what's going on with Cap. The whole, like, Hail Hydra thing, people have been really freaked out about, which now I haven't really heard anything about, so I don't really know what's going on there, because I just thought the minute he said Hail Hydra, okay, I'm out, I'm not pursuing it any further. I don't want to know. Stick with the MCU, guys. You're going a little off the reservation for me. Chris Evans agrees with me. Everyone involved in Cap agrees in the movies. They say, okay, Hail Hydra, I'm out. Defeats Winter Soldier, I don't want to know. But you know, now I think the films, just anytime something's been going on, like with any Marvel film, you get like with Civil War, Winter Soldier, like then we have a big shakeup in the comics to reflect what's going on in the movies. Like, okay, now we introduce Agent Coulson into the comics. Now we have something involving Hydra going on with Captain America. We do all that stuff because of how successful and enduring the character is. So I guess now it's getting to kind of Captain America today, just how he's seen broadly.
I'm really glad that Captain America is as popular as he is right now because, let's not get into politics, please. Let's not talk politics. But given the current state of our country, I think we need a character like Captain America. Would you agree, Dragon?
We need fictional characters like Captain America. No others should have power.
Oh, God. Regardless how cartoony and over the top they might appear to be.
The only fictional character we should have in the White House is Captain America.
Indeed. But no, in all seriousness, though, Dragon, I'm glad that Civil War was such a big success this year. I'm glad that people continue to embrace Captain America. I gave out trick-or-treat candy this year on Halloween, and I saw a lot of kids dressed as Captain America. That always kind of warms my heart, kind of like. So regardless, Dragon, this election was so brutal on us, and I don't want to age this podcast at all. But granted, it is Veterans Day on the 75th anniversary of Captain America, so we're kind of aging it already as it is. But regardless, it's just like, it is such a time of high tension, and I feel like everyone just needs to turn their eyes to Captain America as a symbol of what we can accomplish as a country, as a symbol of like the right way to go about things during troubling times. I can't emphasize that enough. Will the American public go for it? That remains to be seen, Dragon. Social media is a very scary place to be on right now. But we shall see. And I definitely think Captain America in his current status, the value in the culture is just absolutely priceless for me.
Yeah, I think Cap is now where we're at with Cap right now in the culture. I think Cap is championed and he's looked at as the best role model, almost as much as he was in the 40s. I think he's gotten that good for him now. Thanks to the MCU, we have that now. Like, just now people see Captain America, and again, he's much more. Again, this my initial viewpoint. Just he's like, yeah, you like him like apple pie, like America. You like him, how you not like Captain America? Now you actually know why you like him. Now we care for him. We care for him as Steve Rogers.
It's not just the apple pie. It's like we appreciate the ingredients of the apple pie. You know what I mean? We appreciate like the French vanilla ice cream on top of the apple pie. It's like it's getting all those flavors in there.
Yeah, it's like now we care for him as Steve Rogers as much as the icon we just as we like. Right. And again, it's like the shield, and just look at the symbol of the shield for a moment. Again, the shield is more prevalent than ever. I mean, people think Captain America is cool, something they can actually get behind. It's like something. Again, people just with these movies, they're seeing that Captain America is actually someone really cool. He's not hokey at all. He's like, oh my god, like who wouldn't like this guy? He's so darn likable. And again, with that too, in a way of like people accepting Captain America and really getting behind him, in a way, getting behind him like a shield, if you will. Mm-hmm. Liking Cap is in some ways kind of like embracing the American ideal on some level is also cool. It's like kind of acknowledging, again, the ideal, not what America is or is not, just the ideal, like what we'd like America to be, looking at it as kind of what Cap is.
Right.
The fact that people are saying Cap's cool in a way is saying, hey, what we want America to be is also cool. And, that makes him, to me, that makes him the ultimate veteran in a way. So he's the ultimate veteran, not only fighting our battles, but providing an example we can get behind again, much like an unbreakable vibranium shield. Mm.
Yeah.
That's really all she wrote for me. That's really all kind of,
All right. Any final thoughts then on the character?
Well, well, yeah. I'm just so impressed. I'm so darn proud of Captain America for reaching 75 years. And again, this is bear in mind, this is far beyond the day the original comic came out. But again, it's Veterans Day, so I think we should honor a guy who, again, he was again. He's the symbol. He's the symbol that people had care packages of his comics. People really cared about Captain America. He got us through tough times, and he's kind of a symbol of what we want in trying times. Whether again, dating this or not, whether we want to face realities that we're facing now. Basically, even in trying times, past, present, or future, we want to look to kind of the idealistic, kind of positive side of that. Well, we can hope that there will be a Captain America, fictionally or not, that we can kind of get behind that will take us to a good place.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I just, have to echo what I said just a couple minutes ago. Like I said, it's just like, it's a scary place to be right now in America with our country so divided, and I don't want to date it or anything, but I really, truly think that just that guy right here is an image we can all get behind, and we can all say, like, in spite of everything you agree or disagree about, I think it is our duty as fellow Americans to come together and to kind of, use Steve Rogers as an example. I'm not saying, like, we all have to, like, bow under the name of Steve Rogers. I'm not saying.
No, but he's like a shield. He's an unbreakable symbol. That's what he is. He is a shield to an extent.
Thank you. All right, Dragon. So I guess that is about it.
But happy Veterans Day, everyone. Happy Veterans Day again. It's you should really always support the troops again, like we're doing right now. We're supporting one of our favorite troops, Captain America. We should always show some support. Hopefully today you've wished someone a happy Veterans Day.
Oh yeah, my cousin has been in North Korea for the past 6 months or so, and now he's back in Texas. I'm going to see him in December for Christmas. So Veterans Day definitely hits home for me a lot more than it used to with someone actually out in the field. You know what I mean? So definitely.
So collectively.
Collectively, happy Veterans Day. All right.
Yes. Yeah, collectively, thank you for your service. Anyone around or not, thank you for your service.
Absolutely. All right, any funny cap quip you want to go out on, Dragon?
I think I need to wield my mighty shield.
All right.
Avengers Assemble.
Have a good night, everyone.